one go late, yeah, but then you'd be talking about probably adding some lighting to that as well. But that's what I've seen in assuming that's with our current programs that we have today at the school.
Vin, I just have a question for you, since that's the plans that we worked on before. We had 3 full-size rectangles at the high school, and what you're saying here is that may not be enough. I mean, you said you could maybe take 2 natural surface fields and put them on 1 synthetic thing. If we had 3 synthetic surfaces, would that suit the needs of all kind of 4 teams?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I was just, with cost in mind, because you're right. I mean, if you had 3 synthetic surfaces, you wouldn't have to worry about anything. And what I also have in my notes is the band. So if you wanted band for practice, the worst thing for fields, as I'm sure Jerry will tell you, is compaction of soil and stomping, and et cetera. So ideally, you would have either a time for them to get onto the main field, the lined, we'll call it a football field, or you'd have a synthetic surface for them to align synthetic surface so that they wouldn't be damaging the grass. So yes, if you could substitute synthetic, you could absolutely cut a couple of grass fields. And as you know, grass fields need to be rested. So in the spring, we could probably get away because, again, there's only 2 lacrosse teams. There's nothing else that would require a long, flat, rectangular field. Everything else is baseball, softball, tennis, cross on track. So again, if you could put synthetic, or you could rest a couple of those grass fields in the spring. If you had 4 grass fields, you could technically rest 2 of them because you really only need 2 of them. So that's what I see based on my observations.
Anybody have any comments? Chad, you must be chomping at the bit, I would think. Just say.
I wouldn't say I'm chomping at the bit. I would say I totally agree. That's what the numbers have kind of been proving, is that we need a lot more fields at the high school to help, meet the needs across the town. If the trick is going to be fitting them all in there and getting them. I think the interesting thing that we hadn't talked about yet that Vin just discussed was, an extra baseball field. We all have looked at that one baseball field up there and said, wow, it's in really good shape. It was recently kind of fixed up. But I would agree on some level that, having 3 teams practice on 1 field definitely probably is a challenge for the coach, or you're sending kids off, various places throughout the town to practice. Baseball is one of the biggest, field sizes to locate. So locating another baseball field on Fish campus would definitely be a struggle, but I think it might be something we should at least contemplate or figure out, how close by you could get a baseball field to send one of the other teams off to practice.
That's a question.
You're muted.
Go ahead, Bruce. Yep. Go ahead, Bruce. I'm sorry.
Thanks. I don't know if this has been brought up. Maybe I should have brought it up under new business. Is it okay if I ask this, Jerry? Something under, I guess it's new business. Like,
Sure.
All right, thank you.
Frank's the chair, so
Frank,
Go right ahead. You go right ahead.
It's okay.
All right, thank you. I'm sorry. I was Jerry's so official to me that. So I just had I wanted to look at, if it hadn't been looked at already, just how the fields are assigned. And I understand that the Board of Ed has some fields, the ones that are associated with the schools that they deal with, and then the Parks and Rec have other fields that they deal with, and the assigning of the fields depends on where the field is, right, Jerry or Frank, or
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
It depends on, and I think that we all live in the same town, and the fields are all owned by the taxpayers, and we should at least discuss the potential of a more overlying assignment of the fields, and looking at a bigger picture instead of the Board of Ed going through the Board of Ed for school fields and going through Parks and Rec for the other fields that aren't on the school property. And I think it deserves just some discussion, because I think that Parks and Rec has how they assign fields. They have a hierarchy that they work with, and I'm sure the Board of Ed does as well. And I think theoretically they should have the same kind of hierarchy, whether it be that students, regardless of what field they're looking for, have access, if that's the case. But again, I just throwing it out there that I think we should have a larger discussion about that. And I don't think it's been discussed.
I guess just
Thanks, Bruce.
from my standpoint, Bruce, I don't disagree with anything you just said. I do, I guess, wonder if that's, kind of the charge of the Athletic Fields Task Force here, but I am certainly sympathetic to what you just said. And I feel the pain, and I hear the pain, on a constant basis from people who have trouble trying to navigate a complicated system of trying to find field space when you don't know who to call, or it is really tough. And as if we get these fields that we're talking about constructed, I absolutely would be in full favor of trying to create a coordinated system of assigning those field spaces. It just makes sense.
I would also say that, and I understand what you're saying, Jerry, with respect to it. Our purview is about field location, and we're replacing fields and how many fields we need. But I think we can weave it into the conversation a little bit, just about how fields are assigned, and what the hierarchy is, and you could look at what percentage of the players are actually from Groton, if it's a travel team, or I think there's things to look at where that the hierarchy should be looked at. And if a church team that's made up of all people from Waterford is trying to play, I think that needs to be at times taken into consideration. So, and I think that may go to field, assignment of fields goes to how many we have, because if you change that hierarchy, or, assess how you're assigning them, the demand may go down a little bit, or there may be a discussion that a certain team or people looking for it have a level 3 access to the field, where somebody in Groton may have a level 10. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think some of those things need to be looked at. But if this committee thinks it's not in their purview, I think we should at least suggest it to the council when we're finished.
Frank, we have Councilor Borderline with their hand up.
Oh, go ahead, Counselor. I'm sorry.
That's all right. I know at one of the other meetings we had, since we've had many, we did discuss a little bit of this, but I think the important piece of all this is really just to see what we need and then look at the assignments after. But one of the bigger problems is not just the assignments, as Mr. Flax has addressed, and I agree, that is a problem, is also who's maintaining them. I've been at many games, Little League, high school, just town run, travel, you name it, and the lines aren't there, or it's not been serviced, and who do we call? And no one seems to know who should be doing it. So once again, long before I got involved in any of this, of just being a parent, that's another concern. So we can build all the fields we want, we can assign all the assignments we want, but just the structure of who's supposed to be maintaining them and who's making the decisions. Another great example, the track field. Resurfaced it, wasn't part of my decision making, but the long jump and those runways were not surfaced in conjunction with that, and still today sit unsurfaced. So it's great to have a master plan, and figuring out the outside. But first we got to, on the inside, do some better coordinating, I think, between our local government, Board of Ed, town council, rec department, town staff as a whole, to prioritize these fields and put them all under one umbrella. And that coordination has to happen for success to, I think, really propel itself out externally and really to properly serve the community and the town. I know this can come before the council, and I'll look at this all day. I support fields. That's why I wanted to be a part of this. But I think there's been a lot of lack of emphasis on fields and the structure and partially done projects, which have led us to where we are. So yes, I do agree with Mr. Flax that, the assigning, but first we got to get the quality fields to assign, and then we got to make sure the people that are maintaining them are maintaining them. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Anyone else right now? Because I can't see all the hands. Go ahead, Ben.
Just quickly, one thing I didn't mention, which I'd like to, is I think also where the field house is, we need some equity there. So we either need to build onto that and have one for the girls as well, or maybe I don't know, divide that one at 2 different levels, or I don't know, build another one on the other end on the other side of the field. I don't know, but right now it's inequitable.
Right.
So it's not a field, it's a structure, but I just wanted to throw that out there, that if there's a structure out there for the fields and it's for the males, then we also need one for the females.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we've definitely talked about the fact that part of the decision making and part of the field process will be caveats like that. Like there's no reason that there shouldn't be an area down there for the female athletes to be able to have the same amenities as the males do. It's just not down there now. We all recognize that, and that will definitely be part of what we're trying to do here. Anybody else have any comment on Vince's review of the facilities and what the thing that comes to mind with me, Vin, is that the baseball field, to me, though another one would be great up there, I don't know if it affects enough students. Like if we've got to like sort between different, because I think space is our issue, right? I mean, there's no question that space is our issue. So as a committee, I think we need to decide, maybe as we start to put things together up there, we're in a definitive space, and what can we do to I guess capture the most amount of students, if you would. Just me thinking about space.
I agree, Frank. I think a softball field is much more of a priority than a baseball field would be right now if space is limited.
Yeah.
But I'm picturing, a 3:30 boys baseball game for the varsity, and where are the JV and the freshman team going for practice that day?
Right.
So
There's nowhere else.
then I might ask, if we put a softball field up there and the girls have a game, where are the JV girls and freshman girls going to practice?
Right.
I mean, it's the same question. We put a field up there, and we may, there's a need for maybe 2 softball fields instead of 1. And, those are issues that we need to, wrestle with, and what fits on the property. But, and Frank, I guess I see 2 hands. We got Rich Costa, and we also have Councilor Bordelon.
Oh, go ahead, Rich.
Vin talked about the baseball field, and we're talking about softball field and getting at least nearby facilities. So we do look down the hill, and Sutton Park is there, town-owned property with fields there. So perhaps that might be the answer to some of the space problems for those 2, softball and baseball. I know, there's also the demands for Little League and Babe Ruth and the travel people, but so that is land that is pretty close to the high school. Kids can walk down that hill and get to that. So that should probably be thrown into the mix also. With the space problems at the high school, there is some land down there that we've talked about.
Thank you, Rich. Counselor Portland?
I was kind of going to say something to that effect. I just wanted to remind that one of the problems after sitting in on the looking at how we structure grades and what students should be doing to be allowed to play on certain athletic teams and what would be considered failing and passing and what have you. One of the concerns that did come out of that is making sure that the accessibility for students, unfortunately, our campus is quite small, and the planning of that, you know, when we added on to the high school and then put the middle school next to it, the big picture, we lost out on the space for sports fields. And so with that, we do not have the greatest setup for that campus kind of area for sports field to kind of be all part of the campus. So any of the distance fields we have to really look at, because students who have academic needs first, there's not a bus to get them there. So if they have to stay after for extra help because their grade's dropping below a certain level and the field is all the way on the city of Groton, let's just say, or wherever, there's no bus to bring tardy students to these facilities. They end up missing for the day or trying to find a ride. So really making sure the most amount of fields are on the high school, I think, is important for the student body, which is the number one focus, is academics, and then being able to get to their extracurricular, maybe say 30 minutes late. Like a student who runs track or cross country, you know, it's right there. Being a former runner myself, I remember, you know, oh, I didn't do so great on this test, I better stay. And I could just run down there and make up the time in my extra laps, and not have to worry that, oh my gosh, how am I going to get to the next place? I don't have a license and my parents are working, because school gets out at 2:05. Most people are working. So there's a late bus for athletes, but there's not a late bus technically for students who have academic needs. And so that's really where my thoughts of making sure as much can be on that actual campus, or like Coach Costa said, down the hill in a close proximity. So it's really important to really think of that. Thank you.
Jerry?
So I'm going to share my screen for a second here, and I'm just going to call up the, if I get this right, does everybody see the plan of the high school here?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So, you know, I guess my question here is, this is Grasso Tech, and it's a little bit old, and I'm sorry, I can't scroll over, but over here on the left, you know, down here we have this Sutton Park complex, and I think I'll scroll down here to see this. You know, the high school is up on the hill here, but you know, one of the questions I think we might want to look at, you know, we have an existing softball field down there now, and you know, this plan here kind of calls for these 3 fields to be put in there, and it may be that we could fit a high school sized softball field and a high school sized baseball field. This larger field here was one of those intermediate sized fields. So, you know, is it possible to somehow put a full size baseball field here, which has, you know, relatively close proximity to the high school, plus, you know, that we already have a softball field down there. So, you know, we know that fits on this property. It might need to be reoriented or whatever in some way to allow for a full-size baseball field. But, you know, if you have that, you know, that puts the high school, you know, it's not too far off the campus. It shifts a little bit of the burden or a little bit of the demand or whatever, you know, it shifts what is going on these 2 fields, perhaps somewhere else, or at least one field where we would be losing a pretty nice Little League baseball field. So if we did that, you know, accommodated the high school at Sutton Park, you know, are there ways that we can shift that Little League baseball field to another school? And I think, if I'm not mistaken, at least one of the new elementary schools has a baseball field going into it. I think the other one is baseball and one is softball, I believe, but I may be mistaken on that. But there again, that, you know, that's a potential thing for us to consider, that, you know, Sutton Park, it is a park, but it is town-owned property, and it does have proximity to the high school, and accomplishes a lot of what we may be talking about, provided that we can somehow fit a full-size softball and baseball field on that property.
No, I personally believe that would be a win-win, only in the fact that you're, again, as everyone's concern is getting the students at the school and can get to the school, as counselor said, 30 minutes late because they had to take a test. I mean, that's, yeah, obviously it would be interesting to see, like you said, if there are other facilities right now that are out there. Like you said, if there's how much use is that field getting? I don't know that particular field. Yeah, go ahead, Chad. You probably.
Well, I mean, Jerry, the one thing I was thinking of too down there is, coordination with Grosso Tech. And Rich, kind of a question for you is, you said it's right down the hill and no problem for the kids to walk down the hill, which I agree with, but I'm also curious, are those kids walking down the sidewalk along the road, or is there a way they can get down behind the fields? Because there is kind of a pathway and you can see it at the bottom.
Let me see if I can find this.
Yeah, there's definitely a way to get down between the Grosso property and the Fitch property. I mean, it would need to be better maintained. We'd probably need to, maybe pave it and put a little bit of lighting in there. But as the crow flies, it's not really a very long distance.
No, we were looking at it thinking that there's a bridge already across the stream on Grosso's property.
Right.
And they have a switchback on the hill that gets very close to, right there, Jerry. That gets very close to, Fitch's property. And if the road down to the next field could continue down, cross into Grosso property, utilize that bridge across the stream. We also, a long time ago, had a bike trail route planned all along there to kind of connect all the way down to the GNS trail.
Yeah.
And there is a baseball field there that's not being utilized. That, again, I know, Jerry, you had some very preliminary discussions with Grosso about, can we use this, and maybe there's a way we can do some shared maintenance and things like that, especially with their new fields being built back up closer to the school. But I think that'd be a great opportunity if we get the field built kind of down the hill from the existing one, connect the road to be able to utilize the one bridge crossing that's already there. And at the very least, you get access then to Sutton, and however that gets rebuilt. But in the perfect world, if we can utilize, redevelop a baseball field down there where there was one, and that might just be the JV practice, or whoever doesn't have a game practice field. It wouldn't be a full-size game field, because I know it has issues with drainage and stuff like that. And then allow the Sutton Park to be, those fields to be redeveloped for, I'm going to say, more of the rest of Little League needs, because we definitely have a need for the smaller ball fields that we're losing throughout town. And maybe we can kind of get all of it in one close proximity.
Now, so this map you have here, well, the aerial view you have here that's the old Grosso Tech, actually.
Yes.
But and a lot of that land that's between the Fitch track here and the old Grosso has been totally reconfigured and cleared.
Right.
So a lot of that land is not wooded anymore, and certainly would be probably easier than it was before to create a path that would get down there very easily and connect to that bridge that you talked about.
Yeah, and I know there's a drainage easement that a lot of the storm drainage from Fitch drains along that property line, right? That northern property line between Grosso and Fitch. And so there is a drain line that runs down there that there is kind of a maintenance road right now, but it just kind of plummets down the hill. So we'd probably need to switch back it a little bit and work it down there. But again, I think there's great opportunities there if we can find a way to work together with the state.
So, Frank, if I could just jump in there, one thing, and I'll see if I can kind of explain it. The new Grosso Tech is pretty much where this parking lot is. This whole entire part of the building is gone. They're building a little bit of a new facility in this area, but up in here, where they talked about it being cleared, they're planning on putting their own football field type thing in this area. Down below, they're talking about putting a baseball and softball field in this area here. And whether the Fitch could be using those fields at, I think to me, it may be more out of season use, because in season, I would expect that the Grasso Tech high school teams are going to be using these, the softball field and the baseball field that they developed down here for their own purposes, after school hours. That would be likely the same kind of hours that the Fitch High School teams would want to be using those fields. So, I do think there may be some opportunity there for community use, but I'm not sure that, Fitch developing fields here is going to help. Grasso developing fields here is going to help Fitch, if that makes sense. And I think I'm going to stop sharing here and see, because I think somebody had their hand up. Yes, Councilor Borderland had her hand up.
Yes, thank you. I was also going to say, with the, our new middle school and that back driveway road that kind of connects at the foot of Grasso Tech, it would seem to me that, in the meantime, students, depending on how the development would go, that path that Coach Costa speaks of, I know quite well from running back in that area. It would seem to me too that another way, without getting onto the main road as well, until that path was cleared, if it can be cleared, or what the plan would be, you could cut through the middle school, go down that back driveway, which would dump you at the foot or the entry to Grasso Tech, and then you're already at Sutton Park. And you're not even on the main road or on the hill at all. You literally went from middle school to high school property to state property, which is the Grasso, right into Sutton Park, which would be very, very easy to do. And for an athlete of such, you could probably get down there in less than 10 minutes straight across all of it. So I think that would be very doable, in my opinion. And a student could walk if they had to stay after. So I do like the idea of using that Sutton Park as a connecting point for the high school. Thank you.
So just make me smarter, because with the new middle school there, you can get between A and B up there now, right? The middle school, there's a path, there's walkways.
Correct. Yeah, there is a
Driveways.
Oh, really?
An easement off from Grasso. So if you come in through the Grasso entrance, there's a road that kind of just goes right up off to the side, straight up to the middle school.
Perfect.
So that connectability has already started, is what I'm saying. It's just a matter of finalizing it. Before, to get to Sutton Park, there was really no other way unless you went through the deep, brush behind the field and down and around. But this, you could cut right through and over in no time.
So if you were to continue down Jerry's path of relooking at Sutton Park and trying to put a full baseball field, in your opinion, Chad, because you've looked at it 100 times, right? So you have a full baseball field and a full high school softball field. Would you lose the Little League field? Probably. Yeah.
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 Yeah, it's a full-size baseball field takes up a lot of space.
Yeah. Right.
This is a full-size high school softball field here, and a high school baseball field is bigger than this.
Correct.
This is a Little League size field. So the question is, could we fit 2 fields, this big in this little piece of property? That's the question.
You're not sharing your screen anymore.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm looking at it, and I'm circling things here. Let me try to get back there. I apologize.
I was totally following you.
Okay. Rookie move. Okay, so yes, this is a full-size softball field here, a high school softball size field. And you can see that the Little League field is smaller, but a high school baseball field would be actually bigger than the softball field. And the question is, in this kind of piece of property here, could we fit both of those things in there? That's something I don't think we've looked at, but I think we could.
Well, I've seen, and it's not ideal, but a lot of middle schools, there's a shared outfield between a baseball and a softball when the property is limited. So if that were only a practice facility and not a, you'd still have to be careful, but you might be able to eliminate some of that problem.
Right. Anyone else have anything at the moment?
Just wanted to make a quick comment on the I just want to make a quick comment on the softball field, Jerry, because it's actually larger than a high school regulation softball field. It's more of a men's league softball field. So there's actually some room that could be had, right? Regulation fence for high school is 200 feet around, and that one's about 260 all the way around. So there is additional space there. If we were going to actually build the high school field, I think we would want to make sure the dimensions were appropriate for high school softball, and not like they're playing now in Washington Park, which is a bigger field than they need.
Oh, interesting.
You know, and thank you for that, Jim. That's a great point. And one of the things that, the different uses of fields, high school softball is fast pitch. And most adult sports are slow pitch, and those are different size fields. So thank you for pointing that out, Jim. I guess for whatever reason, but when you're talking about community use and high school use, those are two different kinds of things. And the base paths are typically of different lengths and that type of thing too. So having a field that's kind of set up for a high school and having a separate field somewhere else that's set up for adult softball or those types of things would be ideal, frankly, because if we're having high school teams play on, men's slow pitch size fields, that's not a good deal.
Jerry, you asked about the softball field that's going on the Merritt property up there near the new turf field, and I was speaking with our softball coach, and apparently that is going to be a high school size field that they're putting in there at the middle school. So he felt that obviously the middle school will have the priority there, but he felt that field was going to be big enough for the high school to utilize, if they could, or when they could, I guess.
And again, that at this point, that field there's no lights going down at this point in time, right? But I mean, I think that there is going to, just seems to me like there almost has to be some shared usage. It's just going to evolve into that. It may not happen the first year, but it's just going to have to evolve into that. You can just see it happening. I would guess. I mean, but if it's there, we should all be using it. It's up to schools at some point.
And can I just ask one other quick question about that? We mentioned the lights again. Is that part of our recommendation that we're going to put forward as well? Can we recommend lights? Because I think it's one that we keep kind of touching on back and forth, is the fact that if we can get lights on certain, fields, if we're strategic about it, it's really going to help, with the utilization.
Yeah, Jim, and just to kind of update you on that.
Obviously the turf field at the middle school.
Yeah.
Say again.
The group has, this task force has in the past, we have, already kind of, we formed consensus on that, the light issue, and in particularly on the fields at the middle school, that, the consensus of this group is that we need to light that artificial surface field at the middle school. And I think if we're talking about developing any other artificial surface fields, I think the assumption, at least in my head, is that they would be lit. We've heard Chad talk again and again and again about, what the kind of field equivalent use is. And if you make an artificial surface field that can take a lot of use, and, you have it in October and you have to end at, 4:30 or something like that because it's getting too dark, you're losing all kinds of capacity in that way. So putting lights on artificial surface fields is in my mind, a necessity. And I don't, whether it's a baseball field, a softball field, artificial rectangle, whatever it is, if it's artificial surface, I think it needs to be lit.
Yeah, we definitely have all, I think, agreed to that. It makes, like I said before, I don't think I've ever seen an artificial field that wasn't lit, because it just makes no sense. But who am I? Anyone else? Because I apparently can't see hands, so I don't know if anyone else has any other comments at this
There
moment.
are no hands up.
I'll just bring up something. As far as Frank, when do we try to coalesce everything that we've been talking about, right? When do we start boiling it down and really negotiating between ourselves? Like, all right, here's the list. Now that we've, I think we have everything we need, and we definitely have a very big list, and then do we start kind of checking it off and start with the dream list, and then, do we hash through that a little bit and recommend something less than that, or all of it, or whatever? I think at some point we need to start almost just really writing them all down and, checking off which ones we all support. We kind of did that per sport as we went through, but I think, sometime now or sometime in the very near future, we need to start kind of pulling that together.
No,
Can you see that? Can you see my Word doc here?
Yes.
Okay. I guess, this was something that I did share in kind of August, and I think you're right there, Chad. I guess this top portion here is kind of in prior meetings, this is kind of what we settled on, and then we had the high school discussion and we settled on these things. And so, yeah, I think if we can refine this chart and answer some of these kind of questions down here at the bottom, I think that's really, if we can focus that, and part of our charge for this task force is to have a recommendation moving forward in time for the next budget season, which actually, we've got probably another, I'm going to say month and a half before the capital improvement program is kind of, being put together. So, I guess I do feel a little bit of urgency along with, with Chad on that, and I'm happy to put that back up, but I guess I just wanted to check back here. So I'll give you that, and I'll let you know, Frank, that Councilor Borderland has her hand up.
Okay, go ahead, Councilor.
So with that recommendation that was typed a while back, does it have any of the new athletic director's recommendations that he stated tonight?
No, we need to refine that. Yes.
Yeah. Also on there, it says, when you just had it up, I just saw
I'll put it back up there, Councilor.
recommendations to upgrade the tennis courts, which are being done now. So that would come off, correct?
No, this would be an addition. Well, did it have upgrade?
Well, I just says we're also determining Fitch High School's needs to follow upgrading fields. So I'm assuming that if I'm reading it, that tennis courts under update, or am I reading that wrong? Hold on. I just see tennis courts.
Those are 2 additional.
Oh, 2 additional tennis courts. Thank you for clarifying.
Yeah, the tennis courts are great, but we need 2 more.
Right.
So yeah, I'm happy to sit here. I'm actually happy to scribe if these kind of boxes need to change. And in fact, I think with if we were to update this with what the athletic director at Fitch just mentioned to us, 2 full-size rectangles with synthetic or natural turf. I think from what we heard tonight, he would say 2 full-size rectangles with synthetic turf would work, or 1 with synthetic and 2 natural. If Vin, can you confirm that I understood that correctly?
And this is in addition to the
full-size upgrade football field track to synthetic rectangle. This is kind of your premier field, I guess, on the top row. And then
right.
I think it'd be important too to add with lights there. Like, I think, when I read this, I don't want to go, I think about a resume, right? we're hiring somebody. You want to read quickly, blah, 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 got it. You don't want to look with the side note, second page 3, we're recommending lights, When someone looks at this, they're going to look at the first page. What's the recommendation? So I feel, and my recommendation would be full-size rectangle field with synthetic and with, adding lights right there on the front. So that way it can't be missed. It's clear as day right on the front page.
I've already done it, Councilor. So
yeah, no, I'm just saying that just would be helpful. That so when they start hashing or whoever finally, who the powers may be down the road, obviously, because this is going to take a long time to do, that, I think it's important. I always say, some people say less is, I think more is better in something like this, because this is not going to be done tomorrow, next year, 2 years. I mean, it could take many years for the ball to get rolling on this. And as that happens, the urgency is going to go up, as well as the change of the need. is going to change. So we really just want to, I think, my opinion, really put what's going to be the best options in there and lay it all out. But that's my recommendation, but I'll leave it to you guys.
I would just add to that some of these recommendations would be dependent on the shared facilities. For example, if the high school has access to the middle school field, your recommendation might change a little bit. Especially, you know, hypothetically, if the synthetic field at the middle school had lights, you may not need as many fields at the high school because the high school could use the middle school field after the middle schools were done with it, with the lighting. So,
yeah, I guess what I'm saying is that there's a possibility, or my thought is that Board of Ed or whoever could start to apply for grants once there's a final report and people buy into it. I've seen other towns where the town has said, okay, we'll do this piece. Board of Ed started writing grants for sections of the things that they could come forward with. So I think it'd be, yeah, I agree. It's going to determine that coordination. So kind of like what Bruce Flax had stated, the coordination. So yes, what do all the department heads think that are going to be done as far as rec, as far as high school, as far as middle school? Like, it's always been this constant, like, unspoken of who, and then, oh wait, the private, you know, associations using the field. Like, that needs to come under, I almost feel like in this town, fields, in my opinion, should come under like one umbrella where one person's kind of looking at the whole picture, prioritizing during the day. Obviously rec things aren't happening during the day unless they're, you know, under school age activities, right? Or things like that. Most people aren't using men's fast pitch softballs not happening at, you know, 10 o'clock in the morning because they're working. So really just kind of departmentalizing not only the field maintenance structure and the runnings and the day-to-days of that, but I don't know. And I think that way I think the way our structure is currently, and once again, I came into this, it was news to me how this all is run, but it would seem if there was more collaboration and, you know, involvement from everybody coordinating and having kind of only one person in charge of all of that, it seems like collectively no stone would go unturned. Like last year, West Side was sitting there and I saw Mr. Kotecki out there in his dress uniform trying to line the field because is this the rec field? Is it a Board of Ed field? Is it, oh wait, yes, it's a town field. Like, I think in Groton, we do a lot of things really great and it's awesome and we have a lot of things going for us, but I think what we're dealing with now and looking at our fields is a problem. And I think we need to figure out a way to departmentalize it and make it under one umbrella. And I think that would, we wouldn't have to form this group. I mean, they would already be doing this is what I'm saying. So I think, yes, part of that recommendation should, in my opinion, I would like to put forward, how do we streamline the process to make sure all the needs of the town are being met and someone's kind of looking at it 5 steps ahead? I think that would be important. So, because we can say all of this, but there needs to be some ownership on who's maintaining, you know, what, and also the report needs to clearly define, in my opinion, which it states on some, yeah, we can say we have these fields here, but, you know, as Chad Frost had presented, the quality, we have some fields, but the quality is less than usable. And so we don't want that to get missed in our dream list where we say, let's add these, and then no one wants to update those ones that are like kind of limping along.
I'm sorry to interrupt, if I might. We got a thing in the chat from Bruce Flax that he's going to have to check out here in a couple of minutes. If he leaves, that's our quorum. So I want to make sure that we handle the business.
Well, let me just close my closing thought then.
Okay.
So I think it's important to figure out a way to make sure that we look at all of that so that we're not handed this again. How do we prevent from getting here again? So I think by having this group, we need to think about it. We can name all the fields we want, but we need to make sure, how do we not get to here again? So how can this report reflect the needs, the scheduling, the maintenance, the quality and the upgrade and the maintenance of the fields? That's all. Thank you.
So Frank, I think,
sorry.
yeah,
Go ahead.
the things that we need to cover, if there's anything that we can decide on here tonight, I guess, or as in answer to kind of Chad's question, how do we move forward or how do we coalesce these thoughts? And we need to do that in a way because, you know, and frankly, I'd say for the last several months, we've been stuck in this kind of the same gear here. And at some point we need to move forward and we need to, you know, get some things settled. I think Councilor Bordelon, Bruce Flax, you know, the great comments about the coordination, and we can certainly include that in our report. But I don't want to, you know, I think what we have to do is we really have to come down with, you know, boiling this down to numbers and what we're going to do, and come up with maybe plan A and plan B that we can present to, you know, the council and others to move this along, because, you know, we can stay here for a long time. But anyway, with that, Frank, I'm going to turn it back over to you because, like I say, our meeting is going to end here in a couple minutes. So we've got, as soon as a couple of people need to leave.
So here is just my thought. So, because I took a couple notes on what, if we took your list that you just presented, that you've kind of summarized everything, and we start meeting with I'll call them the special meetings. So meet in 2 weeks. If you were to get that out to all of us, so we can look at it, review it, and to me, I think we've all decided that the high school would be our first domino, if you would, and start to work. We kind of know what we want. Let's get it written down, and this is what we would like up there. And you kind of have that there already. But then we talked about Sutton Park. So if we decided that part of the high school's needs could be met by putting certain fields at Sutton Park, okay, so that's, you know, step 2, if you would. So we go down to that. Now, what does that affect? Well, if we do that, then there's a Little League field that we've displaced. So what are the ramifications of doing that? So, okay, we can only put 2 fields there of these types of fields. Then we have to kind of and follow the dominoes. And we've also talked about Claude Chester and how that fits in. Because going down the high school path that way is one fork. And then when you just start with the whole, you know, possibly using Claude Chester for full rectangles, that's kind of a different fork, but you're still doing things there that are affecting others. So if we were to take this, send it to all of our members, and next week, I think in our next meeting, we start like locking and loaded, and this is our path forward, and kind of come to consensus within our group on what makes sense, and trying to fulfill as many needs as we can and see where it takes us. I mean, that's just because I totally agree with Chad. It's we're getting to the end, and we've kind of talked about it. We kind of know what we want to do. We got great input from the new AD, kind of on the line of what we were talking about, which is great. So we were kind of going down the right path, but to make decisions and just sit down and start putting them down, and this is what we want to do. And I think it's time. I totally agree with you, Chad. And I know a lot of us are concerned about costs and things like that, but again, it'll go back to meeting 1. It's part of our charter, but kind of not our charter. You know, our charter is, this is what we've come up with. We've talked to all the people in town that have, you know, an interest from the different, not everyone obviously, but those organizations. And we can sit down and just start teeing it up. I totally agree with Chad. I think in our next meeting, everybody reviews this, we get together and we start at the high school and see how far that takes us, and then roll into down another fork, if you will, down another road. The rectangles are kind of a different
Frank,
subject.
and just I'm sorry to interrupt you too.
Nope, good.
Councilor Borderline has her hand up, and if we can get down to a adjournment here before people have to leave, that would be fabulous. So we can.
Yeah,
Okay.
you've already said that to me, and thank you.
No,
I heard
I'm sorry, I was repeating it.
Yeah, no, it's fine. I just feel that also if we talked about the fields and the coordination of the fields as a concern as to the fields that we may need, it would seem to me before the next meeting, then one would think that we would need to know what's our usability to the middle school softball field. Before I can take that list and really piece it apart, I would need to then know exactly what's the schedules look like. So before we rush something, I always want to make sure we have a good product. So then I think at the next meeting, we need to have a schedule in front of us to know exactly, okay, when this is done, how often are we really going to be able to use it? Before we eliminate saying, well, they just built one and hopefully with time, we'll be able to use it. What is that really going to look like? So I just want to make sure we have that information.
Okay.
That's, I mean, we can say that a middle school softball field's coming on site and we should be able to use it, but I haven't heard from anybody from Board of Ed or what the schedule looks like. So I just would hate to recommend something thinking we can, and then we've realized that we only can use it for a very short time and it doesn't really help us. And then the girls are boxed out again. So I just really think a schedule of usability should be before us as well when making the decision. Thank you.
Okay. Agreed. I don't know how we do that, but.
Next meeting?
So I would suggest we have a special meeting in 2 weeks, which would be October 1st. Because our next scheduled meeting would be the 15th of the third Thursday would be the 15th. So I suggest October 1st is a special meeting at 7 o'clock. And then our regularly scheduled meeting would be the 15th of October. And Jerry's we'll refinalize what he was just working on, send that to us, and then we'll all look at that and we'll start hashing out the dirty details. Any other comments?
Bruce, do you want to make a motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn.
Second.
Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you,
Thanks.
Bruce.
Kids on homework. Thank you.
Thanks, Bruce.
See you guys.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great night.
Who's calling?